Hello and welcome to this episode. This is one of the episodes in the Let's Talk About series, and today we're talking about HR. And I'm very happy to have Monica Beckles from Inside Advantage. Welcome, Monica.
Hi, Richard. How are you?
Very good, thank you. I've been looking forward to this because when I started my business, I never anticipated helping anybody in HR. It wasn't really an industry that was high up on my radar as far as people to potentially work with. But since I've met you and we've been doing some work together and I've kind of become more aware of it, I personally think, and I'm hoping you can clarify this or tell me whether I'm wrong, that HR is a massively neglected area within businesses. Do you find that as well?
It certainly can be. It is one of the most neglected area in businesses. It's the area that I think a lot of business owners believe they can kind of get by on until things go wrong, and then they realize the importance of it.
Well, as I've said to you a number of times before, I've see a lot of posts on social media and things like that by people, and I'm going to ask you a question now, which I think you and I both know the answer to, but apparently most of people out there on social media land don't know the answer to this. And when should a business approach someone like yourself with their HR?
Okay, that is dependent on a number of things. I have businesses that I work with that have come to me the very idea, as soon as the idea of their business has entered their mind, when they're building the premises or securing the premises. Those individuals recognize the value and importance of managing their people properly, even before they've hired them, and getting the structures in place at the outset. But it's quite common for businesses to do it when they maybe get to about 30 plus employees, where the numbers are getting a little bit too much to withstand the manual processes that they were running before, or the people issues start to creep in. And that is typically when a business approaches somebody like me from an HR perspective, because something's gone wrong, as opposed to, this is what I want to achieve, and I believe you're going to help me achieve that.
So then the answer to the question of when should they approach you is very different to the answer of when do they usually approach you. Because, I mean, I would have thought that before you hire your first employee would be the ideal time, because you're not just helping people with issues that they're facing, you're helping them to get set up for for the employees as well. And surely, I mean, I see a lot of people asking questions of, I've hired my first employee, do I need to pay them more? Do they have to have leave? And I'm thinking, why aren't you asking this question before you hire them?
Yeah, absolutely. I always advocate as much as possible to get the advice beforehand, way before that. When you're running a business, as soon as you start to think that you need somebody, you really need to sit down and think, why? And how is that going to impact me? What am I looking for that person to do? How am I going to manage them? Because they think, oh, get somebody in, it will free up my time. Well, actually, it could take a considerable amount of your time at the outset until you get them to the standard that you are then able to step back. So all of those things need to be thought about. But there are people in business out there who have got experience and got knowledge in the fundamentals of people management, and therefore can, with the first one or two employees maybe, manage without going and seeking that advice. But yes, in my experience, very much the same as yours, I've come across individuals who are in business, have employees, and don't actually recognize that they need to give them holidays each year. It's that bad at times. So yeah.
No, I can well imagine that. But what do you reckon? So, assuming someone who's got as few as one employee would need to be contacting you, at what stage do you reckon companies would get large enough where they should actually have their own in-house HR department?
That's a very interesting question. I think, again, it depends on the type of business and the skill set within the senior management team. Often you'll find maybe a finance director takes on some of the responsibility of HR. That may not always be the best way, but there are some finance directors out there that manage that role very, very well. And they have a competent administrator who deals with the day-to-day. And maybe they outsource everything to, a business like ours, or, just an advice line or a solicitor or something. You need somebody at the end of the phone or at the end of an email who can give you quick guidance as and when different things arise. So typically I would say, yeah, probably, I think the 30 plus, as I said before, you really need to think about having somebody who is at least in part dedicated to looking after HR, who liaises with an outside company or something like that, just to drive that process forward.
And also, I mean, the way I viewed HR companies when I was working employed by businesses, and I think the way a lot of staff view HR departments, and in fact managers view HR departments, are, it's a rather negative connotation. It's not something positive that they look at. It's more just a box ticking episode of, have we checked this? Have we issued that contract? Have we told them that? Have we authorized this? Rather than actually encouraging and promoting staff. I mean, is that something that you find as well? Because I know your whole business isn't just about box ticking, but it's actually about getting more out of your staff and giving the staff the right environment and that kind of thing. But a lot of people don't even bother with that. It's just it's a legal department, isn't it?
Exactly. And they're the ones that will never really experience and enjoy the benefits that a good HR practitioner can bring. An HR practitioner, a good HR business or practitioner, should work hand in hand with the senior management team, ideally the CEO. And that's been my experience over the years of my career. You know, as much as, what I would say is, you know, it's not a tick box exercise. And if you treat it, you get out of it what you put into it. And the businesses that do very well have a senior HR person at the board table who's involved in all of the strategic decisions and knows exactly how to tailor the service for their people to achieve the corporate objectives. And if you just see it as a tick box exercise, then no, you'll never actually achieve what you're trying to achieve. It should be a driver of business performance, culture, behavior, success, everything. HR is integral to the business performance.
Well, because this is why I think, I mean, when I started, as I said, Spreadsheet Solutions, I never anticipated doing work for HR. It wasn't something on my radar. But I would imagine if I look through my client list and have a look at, not necessarily how much work I've got in from each industry, but how many the different clients I've got, an abnormally large portion of those are HR professionals. And I think it's because HR is quite a time consuming thing. All the box ticking is quite time consuming. And actually, people are looking for the right tools to actually do that so that they've got more time to do the other aspects of HR, like people management and that type of thing. I mean, do you think there's a shortage of tools in the HR industry?
I do. I think HR record keeping, accurate data is essential, not just to protect the business from the risks of employing people, but also to inform the decisions to drive the business forward. Data is everything, you know, in HR. And I think more and more people are starting to appreciate the value of that. So I know some individuals or some companies come to you because they want to keep accurate records. But for me, I came to you initially for that. And my plans moving forward, as I've discussed with you, is HR data should inform business decisions moving forward. It should not just be, oh, I have a record of when somebody was absent or when they were sick or why they were. Absolutely, you need that information. But if that's all you're using data for, then you're really not putting as much as you can into helping that business achieve its objectives. It's all about capturing data in a wide variety of areas aligned with business performance, which you analyze, and that determines your future strategy. And if you don't know where you've been, how are you going to really say where you're going and what you need to change not to repeat the mistakes of the past?
I mean, I'm not going to mention any names, but I was approached by someone who was querying one of the 360 staff appraisals that I made, questioning why the staff appraisal had so much reporting on it. I said, well, what do you mean has so much reporting? And it kind of says, well, it shows what skills people have, what they're good at, what they're not good at, and how you should change, and what aspects of their work you need to look at, and where they're thriving, and all the rest of it. And the person said, all I really want to know is, have they been at work on time every day? And I just thought, why? What is wrong there?
Yeah.
I mean, surely, as you say, when you've got that data available, yes, you need to tick boxes, you need to know the pay slips and all this, but you have to have that information. but why not use it to actually learn more about what you're doing and help staff and encourage them, rather than just using it
Absolutely.
to to knock them on the head.
100%, 100%. And, you know, I've had clients that I've started to work with, and we've talked about the appraisal system, and they say to me, oh, it's a 10-minute with each person. And I've had to sort of actually know, you know, often it's the first and only opportunity in that year that that individual will really have to sit down away from the day-to-day and have some time with their manager or whoever's appraising them to discuss everything about their performance, the business, where it's heading, how they can contribute, what they didn't do well, what their development plans are. There is so much to discuss. And if managers aren't giving that time to their staff, they're really missing out on the opportunities that staff can bring. They're the ones on the ground. They're the ones doing the day-to-day. They experience the problems. And you really need that time just to understand it from their perspective, but to build that relationship that is so integral to strong performance. And it's, you know, it's done in different ways now. There isn't necessarily this once a year thing. Excuse me. And on a more frequent basis would be brilliant. But that just depends on the business and the resources within the business. But absolutely, you need to find the time with each member of your team to have that one-on-one conversation for a number of reasons.
Because on another one of the videos in the series, we were talking about processes, and I was talking about how directors and business owners will sit down and determine their processes. And one of the comments that I had was, I've had a few roles as project manager in various businesses, and the directors have gone and created processes and structures for the business, which is fair enough because that's their job. But I was never once consulted on any of that, and I was the one using the tools. Now, surely a simple conversation with your staff can actually bring so much to light and help you to manage your business better if you actually communicate with them.
Absolutely. I've been involved in some sizable projects whereby in technology for either the operational side of the business, or it could be HR technology, whatever it's, you know, whatever area it is. And it is absolutely fundamental that you have a variety of stakeholders involved in that. You know, those who are going to get outputs from it, those who are going to input into it, those who are going to do whatever it is to that system, the users of it and the ones who are going to gain the most from it need to be able to say, this is what we're missing, this is what we need it to do. And when you have those meetings, it can be quite eye-opening, some of the things that you actually hear that you would never have thought of. So these are opportunities that you would miss if you don't include all of the various stakeholders. It's essential, absolutely essential.
Yes, I mean, the number of times I've been to see a client to go and build some kind of software for them or solution or something to help them to manage an aspect of their business, very, very rarely do they include the staff member who's actually going to be using it.
Yeah.
It's always a case of, no, we'll do what we want and tell them how to do it. And I'm saying, well, they're using it every day. They could have some valuable insight into this.
Yeah.
It really astounds me.
It's a change management project, isn't it? You know, you're undertaking change, even though it may just be, in their eyes, a piece of equipment. That equipment is obviously important enough for them to go and acquire it in the first place. They believe there's a role for it. So why not do it properly? And with any change in a business, you have to consult and you have to get the buy-in from those who are going to be using it. If you just decide what it's going to do and tell them that's what you're going to be using, I guarantee you will spend more time with the issues that they will raise with you or think that they're having because they haven't been consulted, than if you just all did it together and then you all take the ownership, you all really are committed to making that work, and it will be so much better.
Can I, Monica, we've made a few tools for you, for your business and to work with your clients. And I've noticed, obviously, that when it comes to HR tools, customization is key, because not all businesses are the same. And sometimes, I mean, some of the projects I've done for you, you've come to me with specific needs for specific clients, and I've made something that suits that. So you're getting out the right information you need. I mean, how important is that to actually have the right bespoke tools rather than just trying to cram everything into something that's been done like that for the last 20 years?
Absolutely fundamental. My career has been in organizations that offer bespoke solutions. And it is, yes, there will be some things that are standard, but you need to be able to adapt it to fit your organization. You know, where each individual's unique assets are its people and the way that they do things. There may be some similarities, but because of the uniqueness of their people and because of the ideas that they can bring to the table, your advantage is to do things slightly different and a bit better. So if you're all using the same tools, how is that going to give you the edge over your competitors? You need to think about ways of using tools better. And that's why I tend to come to you, because I don't want to get something. I've never worked in organizations that just buy what's on the shelf. There may be the basis, but then we need to adapt it and tweak it and make it do what we need it to do. And that's why I've come to you, because I can explain to you what I want. And it could be, oh, I've got a spreadsheet that does some of that, but actually what I'm now going to do is, based on what you've said, is I'm going to build on it. So I'm going to my client with something specific for them that is going to do what they need it to do, that's been built by people that understand exactly what they're trying to get out of it. Not just saying to them, this is what I'm offering, you fit into this. It's okay, what is it that you need? I'll adapt to what you want. And that's what I like to offer my clients at every opportunity.
Because at the end of the day, this isn't just a stock management system for something that's lying in a warehouse. You're dealing with human beings. They're all different. They react differently. They respond differently. They've got different roles, different priorities, and you have to actually account for that.
Absolutely. Especially in this day and age where, you know, in a company now, you are managing across so many generations. So you need to have different thoughts and ideas of handling different situations, different people. They'll have different ideas, different desires, different priorities. You have to be agile, you have to be flexible, and you have to adapt. And if you try and shove everything into the one path, then you're going to get out of it, as I said, what you put in, and that's not going to be a great deal.
Well, as I said at the beginning, I think there's a very negative connotation around HR, and I think that there's often, well, there's two sides to every story, and I think with HR, we often hear one or the other. You either hear about the business, you've got all these unruly employees that won't do what they tell them to, or you hear from the employees about this dictator of a owner that is telling them what to do and not listening to them. One thing that obviously I've noticed about you and whenever we've met, that you tackle this from both sides, don't you? It's not just an employer trying to deal with employee or vice versa. You actually look at it from both sides, and there actually can be a balance had between the two parties. It's not always just supposed to be a one-sided thing.
Absolutely, absolutely. For me, we spend so much time in the workplace and we're all equally committed to our individual roles. If I go into work each day, no matter what my role is, I want to do that with as little fuss as possible, do the best that I can do, feel appreciated for what I'm putting in. And if you're on the management side, you want, you know, your staff to come in and do just that. So for me, and it's always been like that for me, when I was director of a credit management firm, you have to think of both sides. And when you think of the people as much as you do what the management want, and that's what HR need to do. And the criticisms that I hear from employees often is that they don't trust HR because they're members of the management team and they don't really have their interests at heart. It's only kind of what the management want them to do. I've never subscribed to that way of thinking, because I think as an HR individual, if that's the way you approach your role, you're not doing the best that you can for the organization. I tell my clients that I will tell you what you need to hear. It may not be what you want to hear, and that's the way that I think every HR person should be. And that's why when I started my own business, I did, you know, provide a service that looked after employees as well, because it's about the relationship. It's about both sides of the relationship. And as much as there are employees out there who, let's say, overstep the mark, and employers need support in handling those and, you know, making those situations go away, unfortunately, there are also employers out there that also don't do things in the right way, and employees need somewhere to go other than, you know, typical areas that are typically much more expensive. But it's not about punishing anybody, it's about educating both parties to understand what you need to put into the employment relationship to get the most out of it. So absolutely, I work for both sides.
Because, but then that must be an advantage, though, surely, rather than having an HR department, for someone having you on board, not as a consultant, rather than having an HR person on staff. Because when you've got an HR person on staff, it is quite tricky. You kind of, when you're under the staff, you go to that person, you're effectively as if you're going to the director. Whereas actually, if you can have someone who's got far more of a neutral capacity,
Absolutely.
it might make staff open up. Because ideally, what a business owner needs to hear is, I mean, I don't employ staff, but I could imagine that what they would want to hear is what's actually happening on the staff floor. Are the staff happy? What can we do to help them? Those kind of questions are asked. But often staff won't open up to a director, but they will open up to an HR. But when they see the HR as being the director's right-hand man, they're going to shut up shop again.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I ran a whistleblowing helpline for a client of mine. And one of the things that came through on that, it was about sort of the operational side of the business. But one of the things that came through quite frequently was this distrust in HR, because they felt that things that they had gone to HR and spoken to them about seemed to then escape into, you know, the wider organization. And how did that get out? Because I only spoke to HR about it. And it's a difficult balance at times for some HR individuals, because you're building very, very strong relationships on a day-to-day basis with individuals within the organization. And not everybody can just make sure there is that line, and I'm not going to cross it, and I'm not going to allow you to cross it when we're in the workplace. When we're outside of the workplace, we may be friends, but there is still that line there, and that has to be maintained. And sometimes, on the odd occasion, that doesn't quite happen. And that's where the trust starts to break down. And it's similarly from that, you get that from the management side as well, where the management think, oh, that HR person is too close to the staff and they don't want to trust us. So you can often find an HR person's kind of looked at with suspicion from both sides, when all they're actually trying to do is unite and get both sides on the same path. But they have to handle that in the right way. And it's not about saying what they're going to do. It's about the individual, the employee who comes to you with a situation that you know has not been handled correctly, dealing with that in the right way, and not always defending management. I'm not going to defend management if management have done something wrong. I will explain it, I will diffuse it, but I'll deal with it, and I'll make sure that that doesn't happen. And if you see an individual sees HR doing that, then the trust will grow and they'll come to you more and more. It's simple as that, really.
Because as you said before, you need someone who's around at the director's table in HR, who's impacting the decisions made at board level. But you also need someone who's a representative of the staff as well. And as you say, trying to find that balance is very tricky. And that's why I've been quite surprised that for a lot of the companies I've worked for, at least, okay, some of them are smaller companies, so they wouldn't have had an HR person. It's always just been the case of, well, Sarah, who does bookkeeping, will, tick off who's off sick that day, or the manager will come in the morning and go, oh, they're off sick, and scribble down a note somewhere, and that's the extent of HR. And I'm quite surprised that, and then they wonder why they have the high turnover of staff, or staff not performing, or whatever else it might be. It's because there's that lack of communication.
And it's crazy, because if you look at the P&L of most businesses, that one of the largest costs is their people side of things, and it often takes up a huge percentage of their turnover. And that's what they need to think about. And often it isn't thought about in that way. And it's, I've done some research that looks into how organizations view people that work for them. And they still just see them as a cost. They haven't quite appreciated, no, these people are assets. And if you use them in the right way, and if you treat them in that way, and if you measure them and engage with them in that way, your turnover will just increase. It's a simple equation. I've seen it, I've done it, I've delivered it, and I know that it actually works in that way. But it will take some time for the older thinking, let's just say, that those financial directors who have grown up looking at people as a cost, and it's only when the new ones come in and they see that actually they're an asset and they should be treated as such, then they'll start to look at it in a completely different way and view it in the same way and treat it in the same way they do the money in their business. because it's the people that bring the money in, and they'll throw accountants, they'll throw management reporting, they'll scrutinize every penny that they have, but the people who make the money for them, they don't quite understand how their strategy and their plans affect their ability to deliver that money for them.
Because Monica, in my what you call a history of employment, I have had some pretty horrendous bosses, and I've always tried my best to do my best at my job, regardless of what conditions were happening or how people were treating me. Okay, I have left jobs because people have been mistreating me, but I've tried my best to maintain the same standard of work. But it's really, really difficult when you feel like you're not treated properly. It's so easy not to deliver 100%. And it's amazing what little gestures and little interactions from management can actually make such a huge difference to their staff's morale.
Yeah. Perceived organizational injustice is a huge area that just affects the performance of individuals. Even if you try really hard not to let it do that, we're all human, we have feelings, we have emotions, and it's like any area of life. If you do not feel as if that individual that you are engaging with in whatever way is being fair and just to you, it will shape the way you interact with that people. It will shape how much you're prepared to engage or contribute or help that person. You have to feel that the relationship, there is some equilibrium and you're both being fair to each other. And when you feel that you are being valued and appreciated, it absolutely raises your level of performance and commitment and engagement, and you want to do more for that person. It is a fact that I have seen in business after business, organization after organization, no matter what size or shape or industry they're in. And as I've said, I've actually seen it, myself, where I've taken over a department that wasn't doing great, and just from the way you interact and engage and involve, the performance, same people, same hours, same work, they just put in that discretionary effort that makes all the difference and gives you that competitive edge.
Yeah, I really totally agree with that. One last question, if I may. Other than the obvious box ticking and contracts and all the rest of it that have to be done, what else do you or Inside Advantage offer to your clients?
Oh, we offer the full range of, I wouldn't say box ticking comes under our service description at all. Essentially, what we do, we are a team of operational individuals. As you know, I haven't come through the school of HR. I've come from an operational background. And I moved into HR because I appreciated the importance to business performance of that function. And it is a strategic function. I approach it as a strategic function, and that's how I work with my clients. So we are essentially their virtual HR director. We are the individuals that can go there and say, okay, what's your business plan? What do you need to do? And then align their people plan with their business plan to achieve it. So it can be as far reaching as that, or it can be keeping them compliant with employment law. But for us, we like to work with businesses to drive their performance, to increase their turnover, reduce their costs, so therefore, improve their operating profit. Because when you manage people in the right way and you get the most out of them, they are the things that you can actually impact. It's not just about how much they cost, it's about how much you can reduce their cost on the overall financial stability of the business.
Well, that's exactly what an HR department should be doing, in my opinion. And the actual box ticking and checking should just automatically happen. And that's why I end up creating a lot of those tools to do that, so that it can free up HR departments. Exactly. The problem is most businesses aren't focused in the way you are. They see HR as a necessary evil rather than something that's positive and that can actually bring about the right change to their business.
Yeah. And when I decided to set this business up, when I left the credit management field, and I did some research into how much measurement HR, directors, managers, professionals were actually undertaking, I was staggered, because it was literally the box ticking processes they were looking at. They measured sickness, they measured, absence, they didn't measure the manager's management of individuals. So they could have had a team of management that was sort of, affecting adversely the performance of their people from the way they were managing them. And they had no idea of identifying that, because it basically was just a box ticking exercise. And that was a driver for me to start this business and to work with organizations to make them appreciate, you know, you manage better what you measure. It is as simple as that. And if you don't know what's happening, you're not going to do anything about it. And sometimes you find out when it's too late, and that's what we're here to try and avoid.
Exactly. Well, Monica, thank you very much for your time. I hope that people who are either looking to employ staff or have employed staff actually watch this, because I think it'll be quite enlightening for them. Thank you very much for coming and having a chat to us.
Thank you, Richard. It's been a pleasure. Thank you very much. Take care.